right, and next we have Taylor Suttorp from Alice Lab.
Hello everyone, my name is Taylor Suttorp. I am from Dr. Al Steinman's lab. And this summer I conducted research on benthic macroinvertebrates and used them as a bioassessment tool in Bear Lake and Bear Creek. So a little background on the Muskegon Lake area of concern. Circled in red here is Bear Lake. Its main inflow is at its northern end from Bear Creek and outflow to Muskegon Lake at its southern end. Its watershed is largely composed of drainage ditches, agricultural and residential areas, which have historically caused it to suffer from phosphorus loading. In addition, circled here in black are two celery fields that have been notorious sources of phosphorus for Bear Lake and are found adjacent to Bear Creek, which is why they have undergone restoration. So my site description, I chose to have 4 littoral sites, 2 pelagic sites, and 2 fluvial sites. Now again, these 2 celery fields that have been restored are shown here with the yellow arrows. And it's important to note, I chose to sample upstream and downstream to further indicate its impact on the ecosystem. And we sampled these 3 different types of sites to ensure that we had an accurate representation of macroinvertebrates from every habitat. So my objectives. There are 3 main objectives, and first was to assess the ecosystem quality after the restoration of the celery fields. Then was to quantify the health of the macroinvertebrate community after that restoration, and then was to determine if and where additional management is needed. For my methods, I used a petite pulmonar grab to sample benthic macroinvertebrates to bring back to the lab. We used a YSI sonde to collect water quality data as well. We used a Van Dorn to collect water samples for TP and SRP analysis in the wet lab. And thank you to Brian for teaching me how to do that and letting me assist you. We also took sediment samples with a petite pulmonar grab, and we also brought those back to the lab. For my data analysis, I ran a principal component analysis to analyze all of the variables collectively. Then the Shannon Diversity Index was also run so that we may look at the diversity between the sites from 2007 and 2021. And abundance and diversity was calculated overall just to have an idea of the ecosystem's health. So first is my principal component analysis. I wanted to point out to begin with, so my Shannon's Diversity Index and evenness are calculated from the same calculation. And we see a very positive and strong correlation between the 2, which is what we would expect. If you look closely here, you can see total phosphorus, or TP, which also has a positive correlation. However, it is not as strong as evenness and diversity. On the other hand, we also have the ash-free dry mass and the organic matter. These are clearly negatively correlated, which we would expect as they are inverse portions of the same sediment sample. It's also, in addition, important to note the grouping of the sites. So here we have in blue the pelagic sites, and we have a nice tight grouping, and that's segmented away from the littoral sites. And the littoral sites here, shown in green, have a little bit looser grouping, and interestingly also include the downstream site. So the downstream site is located just upstream of Bear Lake, not very far. So they're very close to the littoral zone of the lake. So it's not unlikely that it would have similar data. However, it is also found really close to the upstream site, which, as you can see here at the bottom, is its own outlier and is not a part of any of the grouping. Next, we have the biodiversity of my sites. So this is the 2007 data that AWR collected from Bear Lake. As you can see, there's very low diversity and abundance across the board for those 3 sites. Now, if we take a look at the 2021 data, we can see that the diversity and the abundance has increased significantly across the same 3 sites in just 14 years. So the Shannon's Diversity Index allows us to look at the diversity and evenness between each site and see any differences. First, we have the littoral zone, then we have the pelagic, the downstream, and the upstream. So the littoral zone has higher evenness and diversity across the board, which is likely due to it being located in the photic zone as well as having macrophyte beds, which, as we know, bugs like plants. And we have the Pelagic zone, the BL2 and BL5, which had lower diversity and evenness, likely due to its mucky sediment as well as lack of macrophytes. So for my discussion and management, in this analysis, I determined that there's been an overall increase in diversity over these 14 years. And through our PCA analysis, we saw that there is some correlation between total phosphorus and diversity. However, it's not very strong. So I would suggest, or excuse me, Bear Lake has improved in its biota. However, it still remains eutrophic. So I would suggest that it be sampled again for macroinvertebrates and TP multiple times a year, as this is only the second time that it's ever been sampled for macroinvertebrates. And during my identification, I also found a myriad of caddis-like cases that were empty, so I could not include them in my analysis. However, that does suggest that I missed perhaps an emergence with my sampling. So by going back and sampling, I might have a more well-rounded idea of the health of the system. And I would like to say thank you to my lab members. I have loved working here this summer. Thank you, Al, for hiring me. I can hardly see you. I've loved working here, and I appreciate your guidance through the whole thing. Thank you, Mike and Maggie, for teaching me and helping me every step of the way from sampling to my proposal. Thank you, Katie, for helping me with my macroinvertebrates and their analysis. Thank you, Ellen, for all of the statistical analyses and helping me. Paris is not here, but thank you to her for helping me sampling and taking all the beautiful pictures I was able to show you. And thank you, Jackie, for being a great co-intern. I've loved working with you this summer.
Any questions for Taylor?
So 2 questions. The first one, what time of the, I might have missed it, when did you do your sampling?
June 17th.
Okay. And then the second question is there a reason you didn't take your inverse cast family?
Yeah, I think it was more of a time constraint. There was a lot of samples to get through, and I also did ash-free dry mass and organic matter, which took a long time, so we wanted to make sure that I could get it all done before the presentation.
Do you think if you took your inverse cast family that your Shandiner would increase or that you could see higher diversity or?
Maybe slightly. They all looked pretty similar from the point that I looked at. I went through them about 2 or 3 times each. However, they were all pretty similar. A lot of pyramids and
Why do you think the diversity in the lake has increased so much in the last 14 years?
So that's what I'm curious about. So excuse me, considering how the phosphorus hasn't changed very much, I'm thinking that maybe there might be something else that is influencing the diversity of the macroinvertebrates, and that's why we're seeing this increase. And also from 2007, they did not sample from Bear Creek, and I'm wondering if maybe going through Bear Creek and seeing that diversity may have impacted it as well.
Can you go back to that diversity slide from there?
Yeah. This one?
Or
Other
where
one?
you compare the two, 2007 to 2004?
Yes.
Yeah. And can you explain this graph to me again?
Absolutely. So the 2007 data, let me start from the beginning. There are 3 sites that in 2007 and this year that we had sampled the same out of all of our sites, which are the 3 that I'm comparing here.
Okay.
So the 2007 data, they only found 4 family groups. And that's why we have a smaller bar chart. And then now we have obviously higher diversity and abundance. However, back in 2007, they grouped all of their bivalves together. So that's why I have down here, I know it's kind of small, but just in case anybody had any questions, I grouped my bivalves together as well so that we would be able to compare the 2.
Okay. And then this is, what's your y-axis? Is this just abundance?
Yes, number of individuals per meter squared.
Okay. Did you look at comparing the actual Shandiner indices, like the numbers, and were those statistically significantly different?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I was confused about.
Yeah, it was just too many slides.
Okay. Understandable.
Any other questions? Great, thank you.